Now, the National Prosecuting Authority has made a commitment before Parliament that some of the state capture cases will be brought to court within 3 to 6 months. The NPA's Investigative Directorate says that there are 20 cases that have been put on the court roll, and about 15 of those are state capture related. Briefing the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on the Prosecution Authority's annual performance and budget for the 2022-2023 financial year earlier this week, NPA head Shamila Batohi said that government's prosecuting agency will require an additional 1.7 billion rand to prosecute. Investigating Directorate Spokesperson Sindisiwe Seboka joins us now for a conversation about this. Thanks so much for your time this morning, and welcome to Morning Live once more, Sindisiwe.
Thank you so much for having us.
So yesterday, the NPA went to court to present its arguments for a restraining order in relation to assets that belong to Atul and Rajesh Gupta and their wives. But instead of a sitting, as was expected, the case was postponed to today, when the court will give judgment on whether the respondents can appeal. So please explain to us what this is all about.
So, like you cited, we went to court yesterday with the anticipation that we're finally going to be able to ventilate our case as to why the assets of Island Site, which is a Gupta-owned company, as well as the assets of Mulani Investment owned by Iqbal Sharma, can be finally confirmed, or the restraint can be confirmed, to basically show cause or tell the court as to why we believe these are proceeds of crime. But what then happened, we were notified a few days earlier, though, that there might be an application by the directors of Island Site who want to be part and parcel of these proceedings. However, in a later stage, there were two judgments. In April, they brought a similar a request to court to be part and parcel of the proceedings, to be able to basically represent their own company. In April this year, they did the same. Both judgments found against them, citing that when a company, according to company law, is under business rescue, then it's the business rescue practitioners who have the right to represent the company in legal proceedings. So they then made an argument that they believe that because their assets could possibly be held in state custody for a lengthy period of time pending the finalization of the criminal case, which starts next year in January, they would want to represent their own company, and requested the court to grant a postponement for about 4 weeks, but you know that it could even be longer, but for 4 weeks to be able to then lodge this appeal application.
So the properties in question, Sindisiwe, which properties are these that the NPA is targeting, and what is the value thereof?
So we got an unlimited restraint. So whatever we can get our hands on that is owned by Island Site forms part and parcel of the restraint. There has been a recent curator report that came out in April that was citing what it is that is possibly forming part of this. But we're looking at the Gupta Constantia house in Cape Town. We are looking, which is worth over 2 million. However, there was an evaluation that was taking place to look at the current state of it, because it had been abandoned for some time. There's the Johannesburg home that everybody is well aware of. There's the which is also valued in millions. There's also Iqbal Sharma's property that was aired on Top Billing a few years ago that is quite pricey as well. So basically, it's a number of things. We also have our sites on the aircraft, the Bombardier aircraft. It has been cited also in the report of the curator, the September curator report. So basically, there's a lot of things that we're looking at. But if we were to give a round figure, we wouldn't be able to, because some of these things are still bonded. Some of these things are totally owned by the Guptas. So it's still a work in progress.
So with regard to restraining orders and properties that the NPA wishes to attach, and we were speaking now specifically about those owned by the people in question, but are there any others that the NPA is also currently looking at?
Definitely. So you would know the DNDPP Anton du Plessis did an interview not so long ago where he cited that we have, as the NPA, restrained over 5 billion in terms of assets. A significant chunk of those emanate from the investigating directorate. Just last month, we were able to get, 2 months ago actually, we were able to get the preservation of Optimum Coal Mine, which is valued at about 3 billion. However, after assessment, we know that it could possibly skyrocket to about 8 million. We also know that we have been able to, just last month, get the regiment's appeal basically found in our favor. That is a significant amount, just over 1 billion as well. However, we do have our sights on other property, and we're going to continue restraining as much as we possibly can and or preserving assets.
So one of the things that I think the public expected to happen post the Zondo Commission reports being handed over to the presidency would that there would be prosecutions taking place for those who have been implicated. But we heard from the NPA head, Shamila Batohi, that the NPA needs 1.7 billion rand in order to prosecute some of these cases. So let's just get clarity on that. When she says the NPA needs 1.7 billion rand, what exactly would that cover? And with regard to the state capture cases, have you approached government at all already with regard to the 1.7 billion and also the cases from the State Capture Commission report that you are currently busy with? Let's talk about those as well.
Okay, so first and foremost, the NDPP was in Parliament with my boss, Andrea Johnson, which is the ID head. In their discussion or presentation to Parliament, the main thing that they spoke about was that we need more hands on deck. This is something that we've said many a times. We need to be able to appoint Section 38 appointees. Section 38 of the NPA Act, basically it's external counsel from the bar to come and assist us. In this current matter that I'm in court for the past 2 days, we have a senior counsel, Advocate Batlenda SC, from the bar, Section 38 appointee. In the regiment's appeal that was successfully able to win a month ago, we had a senior counsel representing us there as well. In the Optimum Coal Mine preservation, working obviously with prosecution and other law enforcement agencies, we had a Section 38 appointee, Matthews Chaskelson. So what I'm basically saying is that these practitioners that are assisting us in many of these cases where we are hamstrung because we are thinly stretched in order to get onto the various state capture cases, we do then seek external counsel. They do not come cheap. That is an open secret. They do not come cheap. So we need to be able to sustain the momentum because, court cases take years. So we need to be able to pay them as the court cases continue. We do not want a situation while we're in court, we're then unable to pay these people because we do not have the funds. But also another key thing is the modernization of the NPA. We're moving into a time in the NPA where we are doing our best to modernize the system in order to be more effective in how we work. There's also situations where we have to get legal opinions. Legal opinions also require money. And all of these, I think it's not stated clearly how much legal fees actually cost in the country. It's actually quite a lot. Hence our request for the additional budget, and there are other things that we've cited. But coming back to the state capture cases, my boss, Advocate Johnson, is committed to ensuring that we meet our targets as set out in Parliament to be able to enroll as many of those cases cited that we committed to enroll within the next 6 months. However, stakeholder cooperation is at the heart and vital in order to be able to assist us because, as the NPA, even as the Investigating Directorate, we get our criminal investigative powers by the aid of law enforcement, the Hawks, SABC, IPID at times, to be able to help us with the legwork in order to be able to enroll cases. So it's going to be a collaborative effort.
So what has been the nature of that collaboration?
All our cases that are actually in court, not even a single one is done by the NPA on its own. All of it has been through the assistance of law enforcement to do the criminal investigation aspect. Prosecution led in terms of the NPA ID. However, the groundwork is done by the Hawks, IPID, SABC. However, we also have employed, it was made public, the use of financial investigators who are actually stationed at the NPA. But even with that, at times also need the assistance of SARS. As the ID, we've got about 3 cases that are through collaboration with SARS. So a lot of the work in terms of information that is required, the amendment of Regulation 11 of the State Capture Commission now allows us to share information. So critical information that will be a mind map or a guide to assist us in our prosecutions is also vital, which the State Capture Commission has committed to continue to provide at an expedited, urgent basis, because we need to get as many cases enrolled on the court roll.
So quite apart from obviously the high-profile commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture cases, what about prosecution of private sector cases? I'm always curious about something like Steinhoff and where that particular matter resides, because it's obvious, it's easy to go after what is in the public domain, but it seems some of it, gets to basically fly under the radar, and we don't necessarily get to it. The last time there was talk about the fact that perhaps capacity was lacking. So let's talk about private sector prosecutions and how the NPA is faring in that regard.
So in terms of private sector prosecution, as the ID, we have enrolled many matters that pertain to private companies such as Busasa for one. It's a company that was spoken extensively, even in the 3rd report of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, about how it was basically a law unto itself and how it was able to get government in order to assist them to get contracts. I think contracts worth over 1.8 billion. That's why we're able to enroll the 1.8 billion criminal case in court. But talking for the greater NPA, I cannot speak on Steinhoff, because Steinhoff resides with the DPCI in terms of investigations, and the greater NPA. It does not fall within the ID, but I know that work is currently being done.
Fair enough. Now, the 1.7 billion rand price tag, that's a lot of money. You think of an entity such as Eskom that's really struggling. I'm sure they would be doing cartwheels if they were able to get their hands on that sort of fund at this stage. Now, with all of that money, the promises that are being made, is there a guaranteed return on investment for the country if the country is to fork out that sort of money? Because we know that taxpayers in this country are really going through the most, and they are tightening their belt significantly, whatever is left of it at this stage.
Okay, so the amount that was presented in Parliament is through rigorous assessment. We are also taxpayers ourselves. So we did not just request money. The NDPP did not just request money from just a round figure that was presented. It was through assessment as to what exactly is vital and critical in order to be able to, for us to be able to do our job. I've mentioned in previous interviews that law enforcement was hollowed, unfortunately, in the past decade. It was hollowed. Many people who were in the law enforcement sector left to go to private institutions and will not come back, even after we've requested them to come back and assist in the fight against reclaiming the state from capture and getting as much as possible. So we are in a situation where we're working with what we have. We're very thankful that we have gotten a cash injection in the past from National Treasury. However, we do need more in order to be able to get the Section 38 appointees, external counsel to assist us. They do not come cheap. In order for us to be able to modernize the NPA, in order for us to be able to follow the money, it's no secret that the money that was taken through the state capture era has sometimes left the shores into various jurisdictions. So in order to get bank records, something as simple as bank records from those countries does take some time. And that time sometimes also takes expertise in order to be able to send the requisite requests through our various government institutions such as DOJ and ADERCO. But in order to formulate those court papers, in order to be able to, or those requests rather, in order to be able to send through our channels, you need the aid sometimes of a second eye, an expert in the field to be able to assist us on a term basis or a contracted basis. That is money. So there are various reasons for us requesting the money, and 1.7 billion doesn't sound like a lot of money just does sound like a lot of money rather for taxpayers. But in terms of the work that is done and in the space that we operate in, it really is not a lot.
So we know that the NPA met with the State Capture Commission officials, and a statement was issued. And the two entities basically agreed that there needs to be an end to impunity, as the statement says. But I think, Sindisiwe, you will appreciate that that statement is hardly anything that the South African public hasn't heard before. So with that being said, bringing an end to impunity, what necessitated that particular statement? And again, what can the South African public take home to bank?
Okay, so that statement was necessitated by the fact that the fourth report has come out. We're anticipating at least one more report, could be more, from the Commission by the end of June. So they need the public needs to sometimes be brought in to know what it is that we're doing in the background, even though we cannot be giving full details because of the space in which we operate in. So what necessitated the statement was to reassure South Africans that there is a concerted effort between ourselves and the Commission. There is an exchange of information that is currently taking place to assist us, or to become guides for us to be able to do our work. I think I also need to put this disclaimer that the Commission had a different answer, had a different question to answer. They had to answer whether state capture did or did not take place. They also had to answer a balance of probabilities as to what it is that took place. They also had to, at times, listen to hearsay evidence. However, as the NPA, law enforcement in its totality, we now have to sift through some of the arguments that were made, some of the recommendations that are put forward. You would know when you go through the first three reports and the final one now, there are elements where the Commission itself writes that further investigation needs to be done on this subject, further investigation needs to be done on this subject. That basically means that even after some of the recommendations have come out, we still need to do more work. As law enforcement, we need to bring cases to court that are beyond reasonable doubt, that will convince a listening judge or listening specialized crimes court judge to basically decide whether or not this did happen, whether this particular person is an accused or should be an accused or not. So the burden on our side is quite extensive, but we are up to the task, and we are getting as much aid as possible from various law enforcement agencies to help us. But also, we will, when the time is right, make another announcement once the State Capture Commission has concluded its work, should the need arise.
Well, thanks so much for your time this morning. And that was Sindisiwe Seboka, spokesperson of the Investigating Directorate in the NPA, and talking to us there about significant numbers of state capture cases already on the court roll. So we take you from that straight into our 8 o'clock.